I agreed to fake date the girl of my dreams so her parents would stop setting her up with rich creeps. I was folding clothes at the laundromat when she called me. I remember that because I almost dropped an entire pile of clean shirts on the floor trying to grab my phone. Her name lit up the screen like it had too much power. Maya calling. We'd known each other for years, but she never called me. Texted, sure. Laughed at my stories on Instagram sometimes. But a phone call from Maya was like spotting a UFO. Hey, she said. Her voice was weirdly serious. Uh, hey, can I ask you something kind of crazy? I already knew I was going to say yes, but I still asked, like, how crazy? She sighed into the phone. Like, would you pretend to be my boyfriend for a little while? There was a pause so long I thought the call had dropped. I leaned against the washing machine. Okay, I know how that sounds, she said quickly, but I'm being serious. Just for a few weeks, maybe a month or two. I need my parents to back off. They've been setting me up with all these guys they think are perfect. Basically just dudes with trust funds and zero personality, and it's driving me insane. I didn't say anything. And I know it's a lot to ask, and I'm sorry I'm even asking, but I thought if they saw me with someone totally not their type. Someone like me? She paused. Not like that. I mean, yeah, kind of, but not in a bad way. You're real. You're not flashy. You're not trying to impress anyone. They'd see us together and assume we're serious and back off. I sat down on the bench next to the dryers. My heart was doing something weird, kind of fluttering and racing at the same time. Maya and I weren't close. We went to the same high school, graduated the same year, had mutual friends, ran into each other every few months. She was the kind of girl who seemed just barely out of reach all the time. Too cool, too pretty, too something. Okay, I said finally. Wait, really? Yeah, I mean, sure, I'll do it. I could hear her exhale like she'd been holding her breath. You're actually saving my life. Seriously. Thank you. The plan came together fast. She wanted to start with dinner at her place, well, her parents' place, in 2 days. It's just a family thing, she said. Sunday dinner, no pressure, they just need to see us. Should I dress nice? Like, not a hoodie. But don't overdo it. You're supposed to be you. I stood outside their front door that Sunday night with sweaty palms. Her family lived in a big 2-story house in Larchmont with a brick walkway and trimmed hedges that looked like they were in some kind of brochure. I felt like an imposter just standing there. I was wearing a plain button up and dark jeans, and I still felt like a fake. Maya opened the door. She looked incredible, which I was trying very hard not to react to. Soft blue dress, hair pulled back, subtle makeup. She smiled in this nervous, flickering way that made her look younger than usual. You came, she said. I said I would. She stepped aside to let me in. The house smelled like roasted chicken and candles. Family photos lined the walls. Her as a little kid, school portraits, a big one of her and her older sister, some rocky beach. Her mom was in the kitchen when we walked in. Petite, sharp eyes, perfectly styled hair. She looked me up and down with a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You must be Jacob, she said. Yes, ma'am. Nice to meet you. Maya took my hand, just grabbed it like it was natural. My brain short-circuited for a second. Her dad joined us at the table. He was quieter, more serious, wore a watch that probably cost more than my entire car. Dinner was polite, tense. I could feel her parents trying to read me without being obvious. I kept my answers short, tried to seem normal. Maya played it cool. She laughed at my dumb jokes, leaned against my shoulder once, even called me babe in passing. It was the most surreal meal of my life. After dinner, we walked outside to the porch while her parents cleaned up. That was perfect, she said quietly, but you were so good, like really believable. I stared at her. You called me babe, she grinned. Too much? No, I just didn't see that coming. She laughed, and for a second it felt real, like we were actually something. Then she let go of my hand. Okay, first step, complete. I drove home wondering what I had just agreed to. I didn't hear from her the next day, which I tried not to overthink. Tuesday morning, I got a text from her. You free Thursday night? My parents invited us to dinner with some family friends. Don't worry, I'll cover for you if it gets weird. I replied with a thumbs up and immediately regretted how casual it looked. I almost followed up with a real sentence, but decided to leave it. She didn't text back. Anyway, Thursday night was worse. Fancier, her dad had invited this guy he'd worked with in real estate and some old friend from before Maya was born, she'd warned me. There were 9 of us around the table, and somehow I ended up squeezed between Maya and her mom, which made every forkful feel like a test. Her dad's friend, Paul, or Pete or something, kept bragging about his boat and telling stories about his son who had just gotten accepted into Wharton. When the conversation drifted toward career plans, I felt all eyes shift toward me. So, Jacob, Maya's dad said, taking a sip of red wine. What are you doing these days? I work at an auto shop out in El Segundo, I said. Mostly repairs, some diagnostics. Her mom tilted her head slightly. Is that something you plan to stay with? For now, yeah, it pays okay. I'm looking into some certification stuff, maybe engine design later down the line. I knew I sounded defensive, but I couldn't help it. I didn't have a 5-year plan written in Latin. I wasn't some hedge fund intern. Maya put her hand on my knee under the table. It was small, quick, barely a touch, but it threw me completely off balance. Well, I think it's great he knows what he wants, she said lightly. Not everyone wants the exact same thing, Mom. After dinner, as we were walking out to my car, I said, you didn't have to do that back there. Do what? Rescue me. I'm not, fragile. She smiled. I know, but they can be a lot. I've been dealing with it for years. I paused before unlocking the door. Did they say anything after Sunday night? She leaned against the side of my car. Not much. My mom was suspicious, obviously. She kept saying you were polite, and then something about ambition. Sounds about right. They'll back off eventually. They just need to believe it's real. And when do we break up? I asked, trying to sound like I didn't care. She looked up at me, then shrugged. A month? Maybe 2? Once they stop mentioning Patrick and Dylan and that other idiot from La Jolla, I'll tell them it didn't work out. I nodded. Got it. Before she turned to leave, she said, "You're actually making this way easier than I thought." It was supposed to be a compliment, but I spent the whole ride home wondering what that meant. Easier because I wasn't asking for anything, because I didn't make it awkward, because it was obvious I'd do anything she asked. After that night, it became routine. She texted me at least once every couple of days. Short stuff, usually related to when she needed me to come by or if she wanted to post something for proof. Once she sent me a picture of her holding my hand and asked, "Do you mind if I put this on my story just for the optics?" I said I didn't mind, but I saved the photo before it disappeared just in case. We started seeing each other once or twice a week, always around her family or sometimes out in public, just enough to be seen. Once we went to this little cafe near Larchmont Village where she made a point to sit on the same side of the booth and rest her head on my shoulder while we waited for our drinks. It was weird. Not because I didn't like it, I did way too much, but because she could turn it on and off like a switch. Laugh with me 1 second, then talk about work emails the next. Outside the cafe that day, a girl I knew from high school, Emily, spotted us and waved. Later that night, she texted me, "Wait, are you actually dating Maya right now?" I just replied, "Kind of." Which wasn't a lie, but it didn't stop the feeling that I was walking a tightrope. The problem wasn't pretending to be her boyfriend. The problem was that I'd been halfway in love with her since senior year. Everyone had a Maya phase. Most people got over it. I didn't. Back then, we'd been in the same AP Lit class. She sat next to the window and always showed up 5 minutes late. She'd tease me for overthinking essays, and once she lent me a pen that I kept for the rest of the semester. It was stupid, we weren't close. But I remembered everything. Now she was texting me late at night about making it look convincing. Once she sent me a TikTok couple video with the caption, "Too cringe, or should we do something like this to really sell it?" I didn't answer right away, then I typed, "Whatever you want," and hit send before I could think about it too hard. It happened the first time at her cousin's engagement party. Big backyard event in Pasadena. All white tablecloths and waiters with trays. Maya in a light green dress that made my stomach hurt a little when I first saw her. She barely looked at me when I arrived, just waved me over like I was part of the furniture. I told myself not to care. I shook hands with her uncle, made awkward conversation with a few of her cousins, and followed Maya around like a hired bodyguard while she made her rounds. Her mom was there too, all smiles and subtle looks. A few people asked how long we'd been together. Maya always answered without hesitation. "Almost 2 months," she said once, leaning into me like it was nothing. I played along, arm around her waist, nodding when people said we looked cute. Later, when the sun started to go down and the band started playing, she pulled me toward the patio. "Dance with me," she said. I blinked. "Are you serious?" "Yes, Jacob. It's a party." "I don't really." "Fake boyfriends don't say no to slow dances. Come on." She grabbed my hand and pulled me out. We danced. Or she danced and I did my best not to step on her. Her hands rested lightly on my shoulders and mine hovered awkwardly at her waist until she nudged them lower. "Relax," she said, half laughing. "You look like you're being held hostage." "I'm just trying not to screw this up." "You're doing fine." I glanced around. "Think your mom's watching?" "Probably." She was quiet for a few seconds, then said, "You know, this might actually work. I think they're buying it." "That's good, right?" She nodded. "It is. I just didn't expect it to feel this real." Her eyes flicked up at me when she said that. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just nodded like an idiot. The manipulation wasn't clear in that moment. It was later after the party when we were walking back to her car. She was quiet, scrolling through her phone, then suddenly said, "Hey, could you do me a favor?" "Sure." "I need to post a picture with you. Like a good one. Something cute to really drive it home." I blinked. "Now?" "Yeah, I mean, while we're dressed up. Here." She stepped closer and handed me her phone. "Hold it out. Yeah, like that." We took a few selfies and then she looked through them, frowning. "Ugh, no, this one's too stiff. Smile more." "I am smiling." She sighed and handed the phone to her cousin, who was getting into her car nearby. "Can you take one of us real quick?" Maya slipped her arm around my waist and leaned her head against my shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. The picture came out perfect. Her smiling up at me kind of dazed, but trying not to look like it. Later that night, the photo was up on her Instagram with the caption, "My favorite part of today." It got over 200 likes in the first hour. I kept checking it like an idiot. I wasn't even tagged. Then I saw it, a comment from one of her old friends. "Wait, when did this happen?" And Maya had replied, "Just kind of fell into place, lol." I shouldn't have read anything into that, but I did. The next week, she invited me over for a movie night at her place, just the two of us. She said it was for consistency because her parents had asked what we were doing Friday. "It'd be weird if I said nothing," she said. "So you're coming over?" She answered the door in sweatpants and a hoodie. Her hair was pulled up, no makeup. It was the first time she looked like a normal person around me, not someone curated for the world. She made popcorn, tossed me a blanket, and picked some terrible horror movie I didn't even pay attention to. Halfway through, she slid closer on the couch. "We should probably take another picture," she said. "Now?" "Yeah, just something casual like date night vibes or whatever." She handed me her phone and draped her legs across my lap like it was nothing. I sat there, frozen, holding the phone out while she made a face like she was mid-laugh. Then she took it from me, adjusted the angle, leaned her head back against my shoulder, and snapped another one. That one didn't go on her main feed, just her story, a boomerang with a little heart. Emoji in the corner. I told myself none of it meant anything. I was doing this for her. She was doing it to get her parents off her back. But every time she touched my arm, every time she grabbed my hand in public, every time she called me babe or leaned her head on my shoulder or posted a picture of us like we were something, it was all fake. But I wasn't pretending, not even a little. The turning point was the beach trip. Her family had planned a weekend in Newport, just a quick getaway, rented house, everyone under one roof for 2 nights. I wasn't originally supposed to come. Maya texted me about it midweek. My dad said I should invite you. Thinks it'll be good bonding time, lol. You want me there? I asked. I want to sell this. You're part of the package. So I packed a bag and met her down there Friday afternoon. It was a massive house, all glass and white paint, with a view of the water from the back deck. Her mom hugged me, hello. Her dad shook my hand like he was evaluating grip strength. Maya's older sister Riley gave me a once over and said, "You're braver than I thought," which I didn't ask her to explain. Maya was different that weekend, more relaxed, but also somehow colder. She spent most of the first night chatting with Riley and their cousins, barely looking at me. At one point, I caught her laughing at a story some guy named Nate was telling, and it felt like I was standing outside a glass wall watching someone else's life. Later that night, when I found her out on the deck alone, I asked, "Did I do something?" She looked up, surprised. "No, why?" "You've barely looked at me all day," she rolled her eyes. "You know it's not real, right? You don't have to be jealous." "I'm not jealous. I'm trying to play the part. And I can't do that if you're acting like I'm invisible." She didn't respond right away. Then she said, "Okay, you're right. I'll fix it tomorrow." And she did. The next morning, we were at the beach early. Her parents set up umbrellas and towels, and we walked down toward the water. She grabbed my hand without warning and pulled me along. "This is what you wanted, right?" she said with a grin, squeezing my hand tighter. "The full experience? You're the one who invited me. And you didn't hesitate." I wasn't going to say no. She stopped walking. "Why?" "Because you asked me to." She stared at me for a second too long. I looked away first. That afternoon, Riley took pictures of us near the water. "Act like you like each other," she teased. Maya wrapped her arms around my neck and leaned into me with her cheek pressed to mine. I put my hands on her waist, trying not to think about how good it felt. Riley snapped a few photos and said, "That'll shut Mom up for a week." The pictures went up that night. Her Instagram post read, "Found my peace." And that was the one that did it. People started messaging me. Friends I hadn't talked to in months, my ex even. Everyone had questions. "Is this real? How long have you two been a thing?" "Dude, seriously?" I didn't answer any of them. That night after dinner, Maya and I were alone in the downstairs room they gave us. One bed, which neither of us mentioned. She was sitting on the edge of it, scrolling on her phone when she said, "You're quiet." "Just tired." "You mad at me?" "No." "Liar." I shook my head. "I just think maybe this is starting to mess with me a little." She put her phone down. "How?" I looked at her. "You know how." She didn't blink. "This was your choice." "I know." "You're not in love with me or something, right?" she asked. The way she said it, like it would be a burden, knocked the wind out of me. I laughed, but it came out sharp. "Don't worry, I know what this is." She nodded slowly. "Good." We didn't talk much the rest of the night. She climbed into bed without saying anything, back to me, arms curled around a pillow. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wide awake. I could feel the space between us like a wall. In the morning, she was back to her usual self. Flirty, smiling for photos, holding my hand when her mom walked by. She kissed me on the cheek once while we were sitting on the porch. Her dad nodded approvingly. But something had shifted. I knew it. She knew it too, even if she wouldn't say it. She'd drawn a line in the sand, and I'd stepped right over it. I saw the proof in the worst way. It was about a week after the beach trip. Things had cooled since then. Barely any texts, no calls, just a couple story replies from her here and there. I figured it was just the natural come down. Maybe she was bored now that her parents had backed off. Maybe she was tired of pretending, or maybe she thought I was getting too close and wanted to put some distance in. Then I saw the post. It was on Riley's account, Maya's sister. I wasn't even following her, but someone sent it to me in a group chat with just one message. "Thought you were the boyfriend?" I opened the story. It was short, blurry, probably taken without them knowing. Maya sitting at some rooftop bar, golden hour lighting behind her, and across from her, Nate, the same guy from the beach, leaning in, laughing at something. Her face tilted toward him, smiling in a way I hadn't seen before. I watched it 3 times. There was nothing explicitly romantic, no touching, no kissing, but everything in the way she looked at him was completely different than how she looked at me. I messaged her that night. "Me. Saw your sister's story. You and Nate looked close," and she didn't reply right away when I stared at the screen for over an hour before she finally wrote back. "Maya. It was just drinks. We're friends." "Me. Okay." Maya. "Jacob, seriously, you knew what this was. You don't get to act like this now." "Me. I'm not acting like anything. Just thought maybe if you were seeing someone else, you'd tell me, since I'm still playing the part." The typing bubble showed up, then disappeared, then came back. "Maya, there's nothing going on, but I'm allowed to have friends. You're not my real boyfriend." That last sentence sat on the screen like it was lit up. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything to say. 2 days later, her mom texted me, "So lovely seeing you with Maya these past few weeks. We'd love to have you join us for dinner again soon. Let us know." The manipulation was obvious now. Maya had gotten exactly what she wanted. The constant pressure from her parents, gone. The setups with strangers in collared shirts and family money, canceled. And I was the perfect solution. Easy, believable, no strings. I had become a placeholder for her real life. Just long enough to buy her time until the next guy showed up, the one she'd actually choose. For herself. Maybe that guy was Nate, maybe not. Either way, I wasn't in the picture when it really mattered, but she kept me there, just in case. For posts, for her mom, for appearances. She needed someone believable, and I fit the role. I told myself I was done. Then she texted again. "Maya, my dad's birthday dinner is this Saturday. Whole family's gonna be there. You in?" I didn't answer. She sent another message. "Maya, it's just 2 hours. You don't even have to say much. Please." And just like that, I said yes. I showed up at the restaurant in a collared shirt and black jeans. She hugged me like we were in love, kissed my cheek before we sat down. Her parents smiled like they'd been waiting for us to get engaged. Maya leaned over halfway through the appetizers and whispered, "You're being quiet." I stared at my plate. "Just thinking." She frowned. Can you not be weird tonight? Please? I looked up at her. Are you seeing him? She blinked. Who? You know who? Her expression didn't change. You don't get to ask me that. You're right, I said. I don't. She went silent after that. Played nice with her family, kept up the act, but didn't touch me once more the rest of the night. No photos, no hand on my knee, no whispered jokes. We walked out of the restaurant together like nothing was wrong. I opened her car door out of habit. She stood there for a second before getting in. You mad at me? She asked. No, I said. She hesitated. You're not going to ruin this, are you? That's when I knew. That's when everything clicked. I wasn't even a person to her anymore. I was a tool, and she was still using me. I ignored her for a week. No texts, no replies, no showing up to anything. She messaged me twice, once to ask if everything was okay, and once to ask if I could come with her to some charity event her mom had signed her up for. I didn't answer either. I thought maybe she'd get the hint or at least stop trying. But then she showed up at the shop. It was early afternoon on a Thursday. I was under the hood of a Ford F-150, trying to figure out why the engine kept knocking. When I heard someone say my name from behind, I turned around and there she was, Maya, standing in the middle of the garage like she'd walked into the wrong world. She was wearing sunglasses, hair tied back, denim jacket over a black top. She looked wildly out of place next to the grease-stained floors and the scent of burnt rubber. She waited until I was done wiping my hands, then said, "Can we talk?" My boss was on the phone in the office and glanced over briefly. I nodded and followed her outside. We stood near the back fence, just far enough that no one would hear. "You're mad at me," she said. I didn't answer. "Jacob, come on, I don't know what happened." "Well, I do know, but you can't just ghost me like that. We had an agreement." "Yeah," I said. "We did." She took off her sunglasses and squinted up at me. "I told you what this was." "I know." "Then why are you acting like I cheated on you or something?" "Because you used me," I said, voice low. "You agreed to it. I didn't trick you into anything." "You didn't have to. You knew I'd say yes." She flinched at that, just a little. I kept going. "You wanted someone safe. Someone who wouldn't ask for anything. Someone who didn't matter enough to be real." "That's not true." "It is, and you knew exactly how I felt." She looked away. "Don't do that. Don't make it my fault you caught feelings." "I didn't catch them. I've had them. Since high school. You think I didn't know this was fake? I did. But you didn't have to make it feel real, Maya. You didn't have to touch me like that. Post all those pictures. Pull me in just close enough to hope." She was quiet. I kept my voice even. "You could have picked anyone. You picked me because I was convenient and because you knew I wouldn't say no. I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did." She exhaled and leaned back against the fence. "So what now?" I shrugged. "I don't know. We were almost done. A few more weeks, maybe less. You could have just finished it out." "Yeah," I said. "I could have." We stood there in silence. A breeze kicked up a bit of dust. I could hear the distant sound of someone revving an engine on the main road. "I liked you," she said suddenly. "I still do." "No, you don't." She looked at me like I'd slapped her. "Excuse me?" "You liked what I did for you, not me. You liked the idea of someone who'd go along with your plan, someone who wouldn't push back, someone who made your life easier. That's not love, that's convenience." She folded her arms. "So you're done?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'm done." She swallowed hard and looked past me toward the garage. "You know, for what it's worth, I didn't think you'd say yes." I didn't respond. She stepped past me back toward the parking lot. Then she turned around. "If I call you in a month, after all this, would you pick up?" "No," I said, and I meant it. That night, she posted a story, just a sunset from the beach, no caption, no one in the frame. I didn't look at it twice. My mom asked about her the following Sunday. We were sitting at the kitchen table, eating leftover pasta, and she said it casually, like she was just checking in. "How's Maya? Haven't heard her name in a while." I shrugged. "Haven't talked to her." She looked up from her plate. "Really? Thought you two were getting serious." I let out a short laugh. "Not even close." She gave me that mom look, the one that doesn't push but waits. After a minute, she said, "She seemed nice." She was. That was all I said. That was all I needed to say. By Monday, word had gotten around. First, it was Emily, again, texting me, "So you and Maya done?" Then Danny, a guy we both knew from school, messaged me a link to a TikTok where someone stitched Maya's old post with a comment like, "Remember when this girl soft launched her mechanic boyfriend and now he's gone?" I didn't know whether to laugh or throw my phone. The whole thing was turning into this weird echo chamber, and people thought they knew what had happened. Some version of the story was already out there, and it wasn't the real one. Riley posted a photo dump later that week. Maya at brunch, Maya with friends, Maya smiling into the camera with a caption that said, "Nothing missing." I knew it wasn't aimed at me directly, but it felt close enough. Then I got a call from Maya's mom. It showed up as unknown, and I answered because I thought it might be a customer. "Jacob, this is Christine, Maya's mother." I stood up and walked into the back office, shutting the door behind me. "Hi?" Hi? I just wanted to say thank you for everything you did for Maya these past couple of months. I don't know what happened, and it's not my business, but she's been a little quiet lately, withdrawn." I didn't know what to say. She continued, "I thought you were good for her. Different than the boys she usually brought around. You were kind. You looked at her like she mattered." I swallowed. "Thank you. That's nice to hear." "Well, I hope you're doing all right." "Yeah, I am." She hesitated. "If you ever want to talk to her." "I won't." A pause. Then, "Okay. Take care, Jacob." I sat there for a while after the call ended, Not angry, not sad, just tired. The thing was, I could already feel the whole situation fading, like a dream I wasn't sure really happened. But the weirdest part, the part I hadn't expected, was how people treated me afterward. Guys at the shop joked about it like I'd dated a celebrity. A couple of them kept asking if the whole thing was fake. So it wasn't real, they'd ask as if trying to unlock the trick behind it. I said the same thing to all of them. Does it matter? Meanwhile, Maya's life kept moving forward. I didn't follow her anymore, but her friends posted her enough that I didn't have to. She went to events, brunched, took new photos with new people. It was like I'd been edited out, clean and sharp, no mess left behind. Until one night, 2 weeks after it ended, I got a message from a guy I barely knew. Tom, I think. Someone from Maya's orbit. The message just said, "Thought you should know she's with Nate now, thought maybe it'd matter." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I already knew. I didn't talk about it to anyone. Not really. People asked, sure, I just shrugged it off, said I wasn't serious, and moved on. That line worked the first few times. But eventually, even I stopped believing it. Work got quieter. I started picking up more shifts, staying later, volunteering for stuff I used to avoid, cleaning the oil traps, calling vendors, reorganizing the tool inventory. I told myself I was just trying to be useful, but the truth was I didn't want to go home. Home meant thinking, and thinking meant replaying the same conversations, the same moments over and over again like a stuck record. I stopped checking her socials, deleted our messages, got rid of the saved photos I had tucked away in my phone like they meant something, even blocked her for a while, not out of spite, but because I needed to feel like I had a choice in something, like I could set a boundary even if it was late. But it didn't help much. What I couldn't shake was the way it had changed me. Not because I missed her, though I did for a while, but because I didn't know how to trust what I felt anymore. She'd played the part so well, laughed like it was real, held me like she meant it, looked at me like I was chosen. And I let it get in. I let all of it convince me that maybe I mattered more than I did. That kind of thing stays with you. I started second guessing how people looked at me. If someone smiled too long, I assumed it was fake. If a girl complimented my work or lingered near the counter at the shop, I looked for the angle, the performance, the use. I knew it wasn't fair. Not everyone was her. But when you've been used by someone you cared about, it rewires things. You stop trusting kindness for what it is. About a month after it ended, I ran into her by accident. It was at a gas station. Middle of the afternoon, I just gotten off a shift and stopped to grab a drink. I turned the corner near the coolers, and there she was, standing by the snacks, talking to Nate. I froze. She didn't. She saw me and smiled. That same soft, practiced smile she used when we were together. I couldn't tell if it was reflex or real. Nate noticed too. He looked over but didn't say anything. I nodded once, just enough to acknowledge her. Then I turned and walked out without saying a word. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with the windows down, gripping the wheel. My throat felt tight, but I wasn't angry or sad, just numb. Like seeing her had confirmed something I'd already known. I wasn't part of her story anymore, and maybe I never had been. 2 days later, I got a message from her. "Maya, didn't expect to see you the other day. Hope you're okay." I stared at it for a long time, then I deleted it without replying. She didn't message again. After that, things leveled out. I stopped hearing her name. People stopped asking. The comments, the jokes, the DMs, they all faded. The whole thing became something I didn't bring up anymore. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want it to define me. Still, sometimes when I'm closing the shop at night and the place is quiet, I think about how it felt to have her hand in mine. Not the performance, just the weight of it, the warmth, the way I let myself believe it meant something. And I wonder if she ever thinks about it too. Then I remind myself, it doesn't matter. I didn't talk about it to anyone, not really. People asked, sure. I just shrugged it off, said, it wasn't serious, and moved on. That line worked the first few times. But eventually, even I stopped believing it. Work got quieter. I started picking up more shifts, staying later, volunteering for stuff I used to avoid, cleaning the oil traps, calling vendors, reorganizing the tool inventory. I told myself I was just trying to be useful, but the truth was I didn't want to go home. Home meant thinking, and thinking meant replaying the same conversations, the same moments over and over again like a stuck record. I stopped checking her socials, deleted our messages, got rid of the saved photos I tucked away in my phone like they meant something, like even blocked her for a while, not out of spite, but because I needed to feel like I had a choice in something, like I could set a boundary even if it was late. But it didn't help much. What I couldn't shake was the way it had changed me, not because I missed her, though I did for a while, but because I didn't know how to trust what I felt anymore. She'd played the part so well, laughed like it was real, held me like she meant it, looked at me like I was chosen. And I let it get in. I let all of it convince me that maybe I mattered more than I did. That kind of thing stays with you. I started second guessing how people looked at me. If someone smiled too long, I assumed it was fake. If a girl complimented my work or lingered near the counter at the shop, I looked for the angle, the performance, the use. I knew it wasn't fair. Not everyone was her. But when you've been used by someone you cared about, it rewires things. You stop trusting kindness for what it is. About a month after it ended, I ran into her by accident. It was at a gas station. Middle of the afternoon, I just gotten off a shift and stopped to grab a drink. I turned the corner near the coolers, and there she was, standing by the snacks, talking to Nate. I froze. She didn't. She saw me and smiled. That same soft practice smile she used when we were together. I couldn't tell if it was reflex or real. Nate noticed too. He looked over but didn't say anything. I nodded once, just enough to acknowledge her. Then I turned and walked out without saying a word. In the parking lot, I sat in my car with the windows down, gripping the wheel. My throat felt tight, but I wasn't angry or sad, just numb. Like seeing her had confirmed something I'd already known. I wasn't part of her story anymore, and maybe I never had been. 2 days later, I got a message from her. "Maya, didn't expect to see you the other day. Hope you're okay." I stared at it for a long time, then I deleted it without replying. She didn't message again. After that, things leveled out. I stopped hearing her name. People stopped asking. The comments, the jokes, the DMs, they all faded. The whole thing became something I didn't bring up anymore. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want it to define me. Still, sometimes when I'm closing the shop at night and the place is quiet, I think about how it felt to have her hand in mine. Not the performance, just the weight of it, the warmth, the way I let myself believe it meant something. And I wonder if she ever thinks about it too. Then I remind myself it doesn't matter. It's been 6 months. Not a clean six either, more like jagged weeks and uneven days. Some stretches where I didn't think about her at all, and some nights where she showed up in dreams I couldn't shake for hours after waking. But time did what time does. It dulled everything. The story got old. People stopped bringing it up. And I stopped checking for her name. I didn't date anyone seriously after that first coffee girl. I went on a few other meetups. Some fizzled before we even made it past what do you do. Others dragged on until one of us stopped responding. I didn't force anything. I wasn't looking to prove I'd moved on. I just lived. One night in August, I came home late from work, still in my coveralls, and my mom was sitting in the living room with a glass of water and the TV on low. She looked up and said, "I never told you this, but I liked her." I didn't have to ask who she meant. I sat down on the arm of the couch. Yeah? She had that thing, like she could walk into a room and make everyone rearrange themselves without asking. I smiled a little. That sounds like her. I also knew it wasn't going to work, not the way it started. I nodded. Me too. You were always good at seeing people clearly. I think this time you just wanted something to be true so badly. You looked past all the signs. I know. She patted my leg and didn't say anything else. I stayed there until the show ended and the house got quiet again. A few days later, I ran into her mom at the grocery store. It was quick, just by the produce section, her hand hovering over a pile of avocados. She smiled when she saw me. It wasn't awkward, just a little sad. "She's in New York now," she said. "Oh. Moved last month. Nate got a job out there. She said she needed a change." I nodded. Makes sense. She tilted her head slightly. "I don't know if she ever told you, but after everything, she missed you. Not in the way you wanted, but still." I didn't answer that. There wasn't anything to say. She squeezed my arm gently before leaving. "Take care of yourself, Jacob." I watched her go, then turned back to the apples like the world hadn't just cracked open for a second. That night, I found the last photo of Maya and me, one that had ended up in an old backup folder I missed the first time. It was from the engagement party, the one Riley took. Maya had her head on my shoulder, eyes squinting from the sun, my arm wrapped around her like it belonged there. I stared at it for a while, not because I missed her, because it reminded me I was capable of feeling something honest. I didn't delete it, I just moved it somewhere private. Out of sight, not out of mind. Then I put my phone down, pulled off my boots, and got in bed. I had work in the morning, a long day ahead, and this time none of it had anything to do with her.